right, we are on record for our behavior in this manner. May I have the names of our participants, please? Beginning with our guardian ad litem. Great, we've got that person. Ms. Underwood, do we have Nicole Underwood here today? Have we seen her?
She was in person, but I don't know where she.
I'll check the jury room here.
Thank you, guys. We're also looking for Ms. Dumont.
Okay.
So while that's happening, maybe we can start with Ms. Thomas.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nastasia Thomas for the department. Ms. Pelham?
Chelsea Collin, foster care.
Michael McFarland, representing father. Please introduce yourself.
Christopher Ford, father.
Brittany Ford, mother.
Welcome. Ms. Ford, have you had a chance to talk with your or senior attorney yet today?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so she should be joining us. Okay, hello, we are on record, ladies. So as soon as you're comfortable and ready, if we could get your appearances, please.
Good afternoon, Nicole Underwood, guardian ad litem for minor children.
Thank you.
And we're gonna do mother Brittany Ford.
Thank you. All right, we've already had the rest of our introductions. Ms. Underwood, if you're ready with a report, I'm ready when you are.
Yes, I was able to visit with all of the minor children during the last reporting period. I will start with, try to go oldest to youngest here because there are several children. Oldest child, BF, seems to be doing well. She seems to still be struggling with trauma with regards to her mom and what has gone on. However, she has been able to get caught up in school, which is very important. She was very far behind when the department intervened, but she is doing quite well now as far as schooling goes and is looking forward to starting her freshman year. The next child, WF, I enjoy meeting with him. He's a really neat kid. He loves Boys and Girls Club. He says that's his place and his people. So he loves to, I love that he has a place he can go to be himself and find kids to hang out with and adults that support him. He and his sister BF are both at a place where they don't desire to have any parenting time with mom. They're still very angry and upset, but he seems to be doing okay. I think there are some issues with siblings, but dad seems to be working with him along with his therapists. LF, I've met with her as well. I've seen her a few times over the last reporting period, but most recently was this week. I think she's struggling still as well. I think that after her trauma assessment results are back, we may need to consider maybe some additional psychiatry or some type of assessment with regards to her mental health. I'm concerned with that. HF and CF are the younger two siblings. They seem to be doing well. They were excited about the fair parade, and they're excited to go to the fair this week, and just told me all about the fair parade and all the things that they saw there. So they seem to be adjusting quite well. They seem to be happy and well cared for. I did also see JC at his father's home. He was home with grandma, interactive, happy, seemed to be well adjusted there and was doing quite well. And then the youngest, KS, I was scheduled to meet with him in person. However, he needed to go to the doctor for an ear infection, so I had to meet with him via Zoom, but he was surprisingly very interactive over the FaceTime. So he's doing very well in his placement. It's my understanding that since their biological father has been identified, there's been some slow transition of parenting time there, which seems to be going well. And but I'm really happy with the placement and how they really cared for him and helped him thrive as over the last several months. He's really made a lot of progress with regards to his physical therapy, occupational therapy, and everything like that. So overall, the children are doing well in the placements that they're in, and I believe that currently where they are is in their best interest.
All right, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Ford can please be sworn in.
Okay, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Okay. Good afternoon, Ms. Ford. How are you doing today?
All right.
but it's good to see you in person. One of the things we're kind of doing a little different is with asking parents to, or giving parents an opportunity to talk about how they feel they are doing in their case service plan during each review period. Ways that the department may be more supportive moving forward, and areas that of need that you may have. Is there anything that you would like to address the court about regarding your case service plan?
I will say that I agree with, no matter how much it hurts, I agree with what's best for my kids, and that is me continuing to not be involved in the older 5 kids' lives. I was a liar. I was a manipulator. I involved my kids in adult things that I should not have. I allowed men to come before my children. And finding acceptance in all of this is me admitting all of it. Not having excuses, not lying, because that's what I've always done even before I became an addict. I am now 67 days sober today. I'm phase 2 in treatment. I already have a plan for after treatment, which is transitional and then stronger roots. I chair an NA meeting now. I'm working the steps. I'm on step 3. I have a sponsor who brought me. I have an amazing support system, and I'm making the changes, and I'm not making them for my children. They're just a bonus. They're gonna get a better mom than I was during my marriage. And if the older ones still continue to not want me in their lives, then, and that's what's best for them, I love my kids so unconditionally, then that's fine.
Yeah, I just want to backtrack a little bit with your sobriety plan. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with. I think it was the second thing you said. Transitional housing, and then what?
It's called Stronger Roots.
Okay.
After treatment, I will go into transitional housing for 2 to 3 months, and then I will be put. It might take longer than that, but I will be put in a Stronger Roots program, where I get a 1-bedroom apartment in a complex with other mothers that are in recovery. And that will be primarily, well, it will only be Kai that I can have 50% or more. I have supports in the community where I would be able to have my kids at a safe place, but that is in the future. That's not anytime soon. My kids have a lot of healing that they need to do, and I've caused them a lot of trauma.
Thank you for that insight. And I think for taking accountability, we don't often get to see that. So thank you for that. And currently right now did you have an opportunity to review the court report?
Yeah.
Was there anything that you thought was not accurate or you would like to explain?
Well, Mr. Ford decided that he was going to put in the court report that I was homeless and still have active addiction, and the dates that he stated that I was already in treatment. Also, I just want to make it clear that my kids have a lot of healing to do from their father also. It's been known Chris has a child abuse charge. I feel like he should take accountability for his actions.
Ms. Ford, I just want to kind of refocus just on your portion. If there was anything regarding your portion that that you wanted to address.
I think I've addressed it. I'm in treatment. I'm doing this. I mean, I don't know what else in the court report you want me to talk about.
No, it's totally up to you. It's just an opportunity for you to be able to discuss it. With your treatment, in your current treatment, will there be programs to assist with like employment?
Yes, my sponsor is a general manager at a gas station that I would already have a job at as soon as I get out of treatment.
Okay. And can you help remind me, do you have transportation in your license?
No.
Okay.
But in Ann Arbor, there's a huge bus line, and I also have many women in the community that have became like family that will help transport me to where I need to be.
And the steps to getting your license, is that something that the facility or the program that you're working with, that they can help you get?
That would be on me. It's just I have tickets that I have to pay off and
Okay.
fines for my probation, and then I could get my license.
Okay, thank you for that. All right. With that, I have no other questions. Thank you, but some other of the attorneys might.
Questions for this witness, counselors?
No,
I do want to ask, Brittany, what are your goals between now and the next review date?
What I want is to have my 2-year-old be a part of the visits with my 1-year-old.
That would be Juan.
Yes, Swan Junior. It states in there that he had a trauma assessment, and I would like the court to honor that I would get to see him when Chelsea brings the 1-year-old out for my 1-hour supervised visits.
Okay.
And pausing everything with the 4 children as they're not ready.
Okay. So, when are you currently seeing Kai?
I see him on Thursdays right now.
Okay, and that's in person.
Yes,
And you would just like to mirror that parenting time with Juan Jr.
yes.
Okay. And unless there's anything else you want the court to know, I don't think I have any other questions.
The only thing I want them to know is I'm capable. I was capable at one time, but I'm even more capable when the time is right and they're ready. This is about my kids. This isn't about me. This is about me taking accountability for my actions and changing.
Right, any questions, Ms. Underwood?
I have no questions, thank you.
All right, thank you for your testimony. You may return to your seat. Ms. Thomas, your next witness.
Thank you, Honor. I am going to call Ms. Pelham. It's my understanding that Mr. Four does not wish to add anything regarding the court report, so I will respect that and ask Ms. Pelham to be sworn in.
that is correct, Your Honor. I have relayed that to Ms. Thomas.
Good afternoon, Ms. Pelham. You have prepared this this court report for today's hearing, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And are there any updates or modifications that need to be made to it?
The only update that I have is Mr. Four and I did go to Hillsdale County in front of the court on Monday and filed an ex parte motion about custody, and I do believe it was granted. However, I do not have a copy of that paperwork yet.
And speaking of custody orders, this is not necessarily about your court report, but Ms. Four had indicated a desire to see the 2 younger children, but the second to youngest is also under a custody order. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you happen to know if that father has done any steps to have exclusive parenting time or anything like that?
I have asked so many times, and I do not believe that he has moved forward with that piece of things.
Okay. And at this time, your court report indicates that both parents are doing really well following their case service plan this review period. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
And mom is in recovery and she's working the program and all of those things. And there's some FaceTime with the youngest child. As that child, your court report indicates that that child will also be transitioning to his biological father. So during that transition period, what will the parenting time look like for mom?
So we will continue it the same way that it has been. What we do right now is if we don't do an in-person visit, we do 2 Zoom calls, Monday and Thursdays. But typically we do try to do at least 1 in-person visit. Right now it's been on Thursdays, but she's very flexible, so we can make it happen no matter what.
Okay. And the in-person, that sort of is the scheduling about in-person only on the weekend. who does that pose the most, I guess, issue for? Is it the department being unable to transport during the weekend, or what's happening there?
So we've actually been very fortunate. There was a lot of back and forth with Dawn Farms about when they could do in-person visits, but I did get approval to have him come during the week during the work day, so I can transport him, so that has worked out. Traditionally, they only allow on the weekends, so that would have been much more difficult, but we were very fortunate that they, bent some rules for us.
So as it relates to the second oldest, what efforts are being made for parenting time, or what is the issue?
So every time that I have parenting time with Miss Four, I do reach out to Mr. Casares to ask if I can bring JC with me, and he declines and says that he does not want JC around Brittany.
Okay. As it relates to dad, he has the 5 children in his care. And yes, reasonably, this is very hard for him to manage all on his own.
It has definitely been difficult, but he's been a rock star and he's done really great.
Employment wise, has he been able to find a job or maintain a job that's able to sort of work with his needs surrounding the children?
We have been struggling with that. Daycare is a big issue. When you get state daycare, you have to have the job first and pay stubs first, and he can't work enough and have someone watch the kids. So it's kind of been really difficult, but he has done some odd jobs to get some cash, but nothing super steady.
Okay. And is that something that the supports in his life are continuing to support him with? I know that there is not only you, but then also there's IHC in the home, and also the current housing. It seems like they have a good program.
Yes, all of his supports have been incredible. Parkside's been absolutely incredible, but just the childcare piece of things, none of us can seem to really figure out at this time. So that's really the only thing stopping us from getting him into full-time work. And we're really hoping when school goes back into session, things will be different.
Okay. And then as relates to the youngest child, we do have the DNA back. So there's the biological father has been identified. And how is that transition starting?
It has started. We had a family team meeting early in July where Andrew Casares and his partner met with the foster parents, and we made a whole plan for a slow transition. Yesterday was his first unsupervised visit with the little one, and I hear it went really well. And we're just moving forward with unsupervised visits, and it's just going to be slow, maybe one a week and then overnights, and then we'll start week on, week off.
And have you been able to talk with Mr. Casares about getting a custody order for that child?
Yes, as soon as we make him the legal father, I believe that is his intention.
And today, are you asking the court to make him the legal father?
Yes, ma'am.
And based on any of the background checks that you've done, is this individual and his partner appropriate for the child?
Yes, the only concern we have right now is Mr. Casares does not have a license, but we are safety planning around that, and other people will transport.
Okay. You have put in a ton of work for this family, and is there anything you want the court to know about how they are doing since you've been able to provide this family with case management services?
The family has done really well. I've been able to really bond with the kids, and that's been wonderful. They're working really hard in IHT and healing slowly but surely. They feel very safe with their dad. Dad's working incredibly hard. He's overwhelmed, as you know, I would be as well in this situation, but I've been happy to support him through all of this, and it's been good to see the case turn out the way that it is, with accountability and change, and there's a lot of love in this family.
For the children, for the therapists who are working with the family, with dad and the children, are they getting updates on mom's progress to see if there's a way to include her in the healing as time goes on? Not necessarily maybe right now, but as time goes on?
Yeah, we do communicate. I communicate a lot with Chris, and I know that he speaks with Parkside, and I give Parkside updates as well, but the kids are pretty adamant right now with not seeing mom and not talking to mom. So we really haven't made any progress with that.
Understandable. And the trauma assessments, did all of the children make their appointments?
Yes, the only one that is left is Hendrix. He was sick on the day that we had it, but every other child has done trauma assessments. We're still waiting on the results though.
And has his been rescheduled?
Not yet. They are not, there's not an opening until like the end of summer. So I had them put him on the cancellation list and I will take him if a day opens up.
Okay. And is there anything else you want to highlight from the court report or let the court know?
I don't think so.
Thank you. I have no further questions of this witness, Your Honor, and move to admit the court report with the attachments.
Objections?
No objection.
No objection.
Thank you, they are received. I'm sorry if you've already answered this question, but with JC Junior, is there a custody order that would allow this father to retain this child after the case is resolved?
I'm not 100% sure what the custody order says, so I don't want to say anything that's incorrect. So I'm
Would
not
you
sure.
be able to dig into that for us
Absolutely.
before the next one?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, questions, Ms. Dumont?
Yes, with regards to, the permanency planning goal reunification for Ms. Four, it looks like she was compliant with every requirement except, the suitable housing. Would she be considered compliant with that when she's in transitional housing?
Yes.
Okay, so then is there any other things that you are looking for her to complete or do that she's not currently completing or doing between now and the next review period?
At this time, no, she's been a rock star with all of her stuff. I just want her to continue with her sobriety journey. And, you know, the real test is when she's out of Dawn Farm and on her own.
Okay. And when she's in transitional housing, would she be expected to have more parenting time?
Yes, definitely. That would be the goal, as long as she can maintain her sobriety.
Okay. And then with regards to, I know this might not be a question for you, but she does have a therapist at Dawn Farms that she would like to be able to communicate directly with Parkside. Is that okay in your opinion?
Absolutely. I'm fine with that.
Okay. I don't have anything further, thank you.
Ms. McFarland?
As soon as you receive the trauma assessment reports, rather than waiting for the next review, can you distribute those to all parties and interested individuals?
Absolutely.
Attorneys, parties?
Sure.
And my client got sole physical custody of children. Did he have sole legal and sole physical? Was that the outcome?
As I said, I do not have the paperwork, so I'm not 100% sure what the outcome was, and I don't want to say anything incorrectly.
So would you share that also with us?
I would be happy to, yes.
Mom had any type of parenting time through that order?
As far as I know, parenting time was suspended via that order. As I said, though, I don't have the paperwork to confirm that.
So if that order was signed by the judge, what's the risk of harm closing the case on my client?
Well, Mr. Ford still does not have stable employment or housing, and he doesn't have a whole lot of supports right now. So it's important to me to stay in his life and continue this case to ensure the safety of the children with housing and employment, transportation.
1 moment. Apparently my client's intentions are to move to Maryland in a couple months with his children. I'm told that you are aware of that, correct?
He's throwing it back and forth, the idea of that, yes.
You think an accelerated hearing might be the way to go so the court can explore closing this case at that point?
I'm open to whatever.
So you're not objecting to that,
No.
Thompson? Nothing further?
Ms. Underwood?
Have the parties completed their psychological evaluations?
Yes, Chris did his on Monday, and then Brittany did one through Dawn Farm.
Okay, has there been has Ms. Fours been shared or allowed to be shared with the court?
I do not believe I received it in time, and I still need to get it from Dawn Farm. As soon as I get that, I'll throw it in with everything else.
Sure. Are you aware if Ms. Four is participating in counseling?
Yes, she is.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Okay, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you for your testimony. Any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
No witnesses.
I have one witness, that's Roy Sloan.
Okay, Ms. Sloan, come on up for a witness stand.
And Ms. Sloan, where is it that you work?
I work at Parkside Family Counseling.
And what is your position at Parkside?
I'm an intensive home-based therapist there.
Okay, and how long have you worked for Parkside?
I've worked for Parkside for a while, but I took my position as a master's of social work over the summer. So since about May, but I've been around Parkside forever, so.
And how long have you been working with the poor family?
I've been working with them since April, about April. I don't have the exact date, but around April.
Okay, and for clarification purposes, you work with the older 5 children, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and how often do you see the children?
I see them on an intensive basis, so at least 3 or 4 times a week.
Okay, and at this time, what is your recommendation with respect to parenting time with mom?
I think right now the kids are really starting to work through some of their trauma. The 2 youngest boys really kind of display just behaviors of their trauma. I don't know that maybe they cognitively remember it, but I think their body does. And then the 3 oldest, they really need the space to kind of heal and disclose what has been done to them. So right now I think no parenting time, but the children love their mother regardless. And so over time, maybe that might be an option, or maybe when they get older and they decide. But right now, just suspended until they can really start going and getting, healed.
So is that not only in their best interest, but what their desire is as well?
Yeah.
Okay. And how long do you plan on continuing your intensive home-based therapy?
I think we're gonna go to September, if I'm correct. I think it goes to September. And yeah, so this is September unless they extend it, unless DHS just extends it for another 30 days. But I hope to have some kind of permanent planning by that time to where I don't just disappear. I'll keep seeing them, so.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I don't have any further questions, but the other attorneys might.
Ms. Thomas?
Ms. Underwood asked my only question. I was just wondering about, that she's typically a 4-month-ish program, and so there's an extension plan for one there after IHT, but it sounds like that's already being considered. So I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Mr. Mott?
Ms. Sloan, do you think, not now, but maybe sometime in the future as more therapy is completed, that therapeutic parenting time between the children and their mother would be a good option? I think if it's gonna happen, I think that therapeutic parenting time would be best. I think some kind of reunification, intensive therapy like that would be best. But right now they're just kind of reacting to trauma at this point in time, so. Thank you.
Mr. McFarland?
My client indicates you're at his house so often you're almost a fixture, but might that kind of be true?
Yeah.
Would you say that there is no reasonable risk of harm to the children around my client?
No, there is not. They're pretty safe there. They love their dad.
Thank you. Further.
Ms. Underwood? Any redirect?
No, thank you, Judge.
Thank you for your testimony. May you return to your seat. All right, any other witnesses? Ms. Underwood?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Comments in closing then, Ms. Thomas?
Judge, I just wanted to revisit the custody order of Ms. Four and Mr. Casares. It looks like I might have included that in our original filing, and if I didn't, that is my oversight, and I will ask Ms. Pelham to provide that to the court for the next hearing. But the order I have indicates that the parents share 50-50 custody, and then there is a week on, week off parenting time schedule, and then a court adopted holiday schedule. And with that, I looked at our old order of disposition in this case regarding parenting time, and that child isn't necessarily addressed point blank on that. So right now, I don't know necessarily how to address that in our case, other than to ask the court to make an order on parenting time, as ours would supersede whatever custody order is in place. Other than that, it seems that things are going pretty well for the parents under the court's jurisdiction. We are asking that Mr. Andrew Casadas be made the legal father of the youngest child based on the DNA testing and the 99.9997% chance that he is the biological father of that child. He is appropriate and willing to establish that bond with his child and take placement with the child. And we often don't get to see that in these cases. So it's really kind of refreshing. And as it relates to maintaining the case for Mr. Ford, I think Ms. Pelham stated it best. There's still some instability with his housing and employment and those really basic supports that we would want to see achieved in order to feel confident that the court would not need to intervene in the future. We are just asking the court to maintain jurisdiction over both parents at this point. Again, we are asking the court to maintain the suspension of parenting time for the 5 older children. I believe that as relates to the 2 younger ones, Ms. Pelham has a good parenting time plan, at least for the youngest, and we're hopeful that you can make an order regarding the second youngest. With that, I have nothing further other than to ask for that 90-day review. And if we need a quicker review, we can always ask for one. I'm not sure what is happening with Mr. Ford and his intents to leave the state, and if that would provide the children permanency or stability. But I think it can be resolved with a family team meeting. Thank you.
All right, yes, I do see the original custody order in the file on Casares. I just want to make sure this is the most up-to-date one. It's dated December 1st, 2023. If there's anything different from that, great. Otherwise, I will, in addition to address the parenting time, order that he appear at the next hearing to explain why he hasn't taken any measures necessary to safeguard his child, nor any measures to effectuate reunification, because that's an issue. Either he wants to change custody or he doesn't. And we're going to need answers, obviously, on that point.
Your Honor, I did speak with him earlier this week when I set up my meeting with the child, and he did indicate he was meeting with his attorney to file something. So I'm hopeful that that will be done shortly.
So are you saying you don't think I need to demand that he appear just yet?
I don't think it would hurt, I suppose, if he hasn't filed anything, but it's my understanding his intention was to have something filed.
I will say he has told me that multiple times before, and he has not followed through, so.
Yes, we've been open since April. Okay, all right. Next, Ms. Dumont.
Yes, Your Honor. My client just would like me to place on record for her that she has no issue with changing Kai's last name to Casares. She would be requesting a 60-day review, just because at that point she will be out of rehab and in transitional housing. We would be requesting that Your Honor order parenting time with Juan Jr. and Kai to either be once in person while she's at dog farms, or 2 times a week for Zoom visits if possible. She understands the reasoning for the suspended parenting time with the older 5 children. And she would just like the court to consider that she is working hard to maintain her sobriety and is taking every step necessary and will comply with her case service plan throughout the next review period as well.
Mr. McCrum.
We've heard the Masters of Social Worker testify that there is no risk of harm the kids being in my client's home. Despite that, my client would like to keep this case open for a little bit longer, as the kids are benefiting from services, as is he, Your Honor. And he doesn't want to set himself up to fail. We would also ask for an accelerated review. So after the family team meeting, if the push forward is for him to go with family who's already residing in Maryland as far as permanency, that we can address that sooner rather than later.
Okay, Ms. Underwood.
Your Honor, I agree that both parties seem to be making progress, which I like to see. However, of course, it's my job to represent the best interests of the children. And at this time, I do support Ms. Sloan's recommendation with regards to suspended parenting time as to the older 5 children. With respect to the younger 2 children, I know the youngest is already having some visits with mom, which I think I'm okay with, assuming that the trauma assessments don't come back with anything alarming. When we do receive those trauma assessments back, if there is anything in there that would indicate that parenting time is contrary to their best interests, I would ask the court to update its order, or I can always file a motion to do so, but I would be supportive of the younger 2 having some parenting time at the direction and supervision of the department.
Thank you. Well, the court finds all interested parties are given notice for purposes of today's review hearing. I do see some good effort being put in by Ms. Brittany Ford as well as Christopher Ford, so thank you. Good job. I know this isn't easy and you have a lot of kids to worry about, frankly. I think that it's necessary to continue the exercise of jurisdiction and the support of the department for Mr. Christopher Ford, both because he needs it, but also because the situation is desperately in need of some support. And if it isn't something that's available outside of department, then it may very well become necessary to look at formal removal procedures in order to effectually support Christopher as he tries to get back on his feet, frankly. So I look forward to the updates on the services in the next review period. The children will continue to be suspended out of the care of Ms. Brittany Ford. She needs to demonstrate sobriety, continued sobriety, but also some progress on some of the other pieces. We need the psychological evaluation back and some work done on parenting and the understanding of abuse and neglect and some of the things that the children went through, so that those mistakes are not repeated. So there's lots more work to be done for Ms. Ford. As it relates to the request for parenting time, I'm going to leave parenting time in the discretion of Parkside therapeutic providers for the 4 children, the 5 4 children. I think that our providers through Parkside are fully capable of determining when and where any kind of parenting time may be appropriate. Referrals could be made also for reunification through Renee Moore for parenting time purposes. So I would encourage the department to be ready to move in whatever direction benefits the children when it's time. Obviously, the trauma assessments will also be informative as it relates to whether or not and when parenting time is appropriate for those children with mom. They will also clearly be informative as it relates to the youngest 2 children, but for purposes of those youngest 2, they do seem to be doing well comparatively to the struggles that the older children are reporting. The older children have been through a lot of trauma. And I do find that it is a risk to their mental health to force them into visitation right away. And I'm really relieved to hear Ms. Ford understand that and acknowledge that for her kids, that they may need some time to recover. And that in the meantime, she's doing the work that she needs to do to recover. And so that's a good example. All right, so we'll issue supervised visitation orders at the discretion of the department for the youngest 2 children. I will mention them specifically in the court order so that that's clear. And then I'll just leave it to the department to arrange those visits as necessary and appropriate. In the meantime, the children will remain in their placements. Those are the safest and least restrictive. The youngest is the only one who is in foster care without a parent at the moment, but he's transitioning into the care of his biological and now legal father. Court does find that the DNA results that were entered into evidence today are reliable. They're uncontested. And Andrew Casares is now acknowledged as the legal father of Caseworker as of today. So he will have those obligations as well as those privileges and responsibilities. And we may very well see him being transitioned or returned to the care of that legal parent by our next review. So I'll just look for updates on that point. But JCJ will remain with his legal father as well the rest of the children with Mr. Ford until our next review hearing. Under the terms and conditions I've outlined here, the directives in the case services plans, and the moves as necessary by the department moving forward. We'll set our next hearing for 3 months out. If you need something before then, you know where to find me. In the meantime, I'm going to let you all work on your case services and supporting all the children, and we'll come back together and review the case, assuming you're available, October 7th at 1:30. All right, thank you. That's all for today. We'll get the order. Okay, we're here on a review. We've been an extensive opportunity to talk. The attorneys have had a chance to talk with me, bench conference, because there's some things happening in this file. And I'll let them address what pieces of that they'd like to put on the record after appearances.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Nicole Underwood, legal guardian ad litem for the minor children.
Nastasia Thomas, counsel for the department.
Amy Fullerton from the department.
Michael McFarland representing father, Mr. Ford. Mr. Ford?
Christopher Ford, father.
Brittany for mother.
Okay, all right, welcome. I know, Ms. Dumont, you're pressed for time. Did you want to put any comments on the record about our site?
We're talking with regards to remove children from Mr. Four. Ms. Four does want the court to know that she will soon be getting her own housing in which she can have placement of her children, along with some sober supports and counseling and drug testing and things like that. I do know that a potential placement with a paternal grandmother, and I know that she is not consenting to that, and she does not believe that's in the best interest of her children. So I did want to place that on record.
Thank you. Succinctly put. Ms. Thomas, do you want to go next? Any comments?
Thank you, Your Honor. It was my request for the sidebar. There were several moving pieces in this matter. As Ms. Dumont put it, we are looking to the court for guidance on removal of the children from the father at this point in time. And there were significant efforts put into discussing potential placements and what might happen with the children. And then docket control from that point. But other than that, I don't know that I have much more to add. Thank you.
Also well said. Mr. McFarland?
There's also a discussion that one of the children was placed with my client, the father, has allegedly committed a CSC against another child. It's alleged my client's not allowing a police interview. That was brought up. That's another component that was not mentioned.
Yes, that's true. Ms. Underwood?
I have no additional comments at this time.
Your Honor, in addition, if I might, there's also some discussion that there was a possible placement with this grandmother, that there was some type of conflict with one of the parties or one of the children or something like that brought up. That's all that I can recollect in that.
Yes, so that should be some comfort to you that have been waiting for us to come out, that a lot of the things I'm sure that you're concerned about are also the concerns of the attorneys. All right, so let's see what we can do to figure something out. Ms. Underwood.
Your Honor, I had an opportunity to meet with 6 of the 7 minor children. Unfortunately, the oldest child, BF, is in inpatient mental health treatment right now, so I was unable to meet with her. However, I am attempting to schedule some type of phone conversation with her as soon as possible, and I will file the appropriate reports for that. I met with the next oldest child, WF, at his school recently, and he and I spoke quite at length. He's struggling, I think, as the court seems to be well aware of. However, I feel like he's doing his best at this time. I do have concerns about his mental health and well-being, and I'm hoping that those can continue to be addressed. The next youngest 3 I met with at their school at Michener last week, and they all seem to be doing fairly well. The younger 2 boys are very active and just curious little guys, but the time I met with them, they seem to be doing well. The daughter, LF, seems to be doing okay. I'm concerned that she needs, when her assessment indicated she may have some issues with eyesight. So I'm hoping that, and that has been addressed with Mr. Ford, but I don't believe that she's had an eye exam done. However, the school is having eye testing, I believe this week, actually, tomorrow or the next day. So there may be some type of, at least preliminary testing done to determine if more needs to be done there with her. I am concerned with her well-being as well, just in general. She seems to have highs and lows, and I don't know that all of the needs that were in her assessment have been addressed by the parents at this time. I also got to meet with the youngest two children. JC has been with his dad, who's a non-respondent father. I believe he was ordered to be here today, but I don't see him. But I did meet with the child. He's really grown a lot since I first started meeting with him. He's very curious and happy, showed me Paw Patrol and some sort of like go-kart that he had, or like a bumper car in his house. So he was showing me that. He's just really he's really warmed up to me since I first met him. He seems to be doing very well with where he's at. And then the youngest, KS, has recently transitioned from the foster home into his dad and stepmom's house. And he seems to be doing very well there. And the adjustment period has gone slowly, but he is now full-time in the care of his dad. And I believe he's working to get some type of legal custody in place for his child. I don't have any concerns with this time with the placement of the youngest two. However, I do have significant concerns with the placement of the oldest five. That concludes my report at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Thomas?
Your Honor, given that Ms. Dumont does need to attend another hearing, just ask for instruction on how to move forward if we need to bifurcate the case, the matter, and adjourn Ms. Ford's portion out until Ms. Dumont's available. I am agreeable to that. But I just wanted to recognize Ms. Dumont's time right now.
Ms. Dumont, yes, you did make us aware of that at the sidebar. Mr. McFarland's client is somebody that we can talk through and about today. I have some time on Friday if you want us to try to continue the portion as it relates to your client. What's your preference?
I am available all day on Friday. So if that would be available with regards to Ms. Four, I would like to be there for her.
It looks like I actually have some time tomorrow afternoon. I don't know if we have something scheduled that got canceled. It looks like I actually have some time tomorrow afternoon at 2:30.
I have 2 cases back to back with you.
Okay, which ones?
So it looks like we have Connor at 2. Yeah, and I don't know that my calendar is up to date. I didn't cross-reference it with the docket. But I know that we're supposed to allegedly have O'Connor, Shay, and Curtis.
I know I had Shay. So okay.
Okay. All right, so Friday's probably still safe then, until we figure out what's going on with that.
Well, I no longer see Shay.
Well, I see 2 o'clock Connor, 3 o'clock Shay, 9 calendar in my outlook.
Okay.
The docket has 1:30 for Mitchell Curtis.
1:30 for MCR.
I had 2 MCI scheduled at 1:30, but that's it.
Mitchell Curtis.
No, I don't even have him on. Okay, Friday's safer. Friday's safer than tomorrow. Clearly there's some issues with tomorrow. My assistant leaves for a week and this is what happens. All right, so are you available Friday? You said you were, Ms. Dumont?
Yes, Your Honor, whatever time you want.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. All right, and what about you, Ms. Brittany Ford? You would be welcome to stay today, but I would offer to you the opportunity to continue the hearing as it relates to your progress on Friday, because you would not have Ms. Dumont here for you for the rest of today's hearing. What are your thoughts?
I would be willing to do it without her here, to be honest.
All right, I would not obviously expect you to perform like an attorney would, and I would do my best to allow you your opportunity to ask any questions about our witnesses, just like I would if Ms. Dumont was here with you as well. But you should be aware that obviously, there's a lot at stake here and I want you to have an attorney if at all possible. But if it is your choice and if you want to proceed without your attorney, if she's got to go, then I can allow you to do that too. And by the way, if you decide you want to move forward and then you decide later that you want us to continue with your piece waiting for Mr. Mott, I'm willing to pivot at any point.
I was like, would I be able to testify without my attorney, just be able to testify today and then that's all I want to do is testify today and then figure out what's happening from here.
Your Honor, and I'd have no objection with her being able to testify. At the last review period, she testified and she did very well. Ms. Ford knows her case and she knows where she's at and is able to articulate that to the court.
Right. Anyone else want to weigh in on this before we move forward with that choice?
One moment, Your Honor.
Your Honor, my only concern is going to be me perhaps crossing her, but my client indicates he doesn't anticipate me asking her any questions whatsoever. So we have no objection.
Just ask how if Ms. Dumont anticipates her hearing in Jackson to last the rest of the day, or she may be able to be logging back on at all.
I can try and log back in. It's one settlement conference, and so I can log back in once I'm done with it.
That'd be great if that works out.
Thank you.
So it's done.
Right. Further docket management complete for the moment. Where would you like to start, Ms. Thomas?
No idea, Your Honor.
I can do just a brief opening statement regarding the time constraint.
Go ahead.
My client advised me that the kids get off their bus around 4 o'clock today, so he needs to be there. He needs to be out of here by what time?
They'll get off the bus at like 4, 9 is out there.
He needs to be out here by 4 because they get off the bus at 4:10. The
Okay.
kids are to be with them, so just letting the court know.
Thank you. All right. Bring that up again if we start pushing that time frame for you.
Will do.
Hopefully we're done. Anything else before we get into testimony?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Thomas?
I'm gonna call Ms. Fullerton first, please. Ms. Fullerton, briefly, I just wanted to note for the record, you are not the actual foster care worker on this case, correct? What is your role in this matter?
I am the supervisor, a foster care supervisor. Chelsea was the assigned worker. She's out unexpectedly on a medical leave, and so the new worker is Ms. Janie Dillon.
Okay. And as the supervisor, how are you familiar with the facts of this case?
I counsel with my workers all throughout all of their cases. We meet several times a week to discuss progress, needs, to get approvals for anything that may need to be done. So I'm pretty well abreast of things that are happening.
Do you attend family team meetings when the workers schedule them with the family?
I do.
And have you had direct contact with anyone in the family?
I have.
Since Ms. Helen has been unavailable, have you also assisted with what we would maybe consider direct case management in this case?
Yes, I have.
Ms. Helen, I believe, drafted a pretty thorough report for today's hearing. Is that a fair summation?
Yes, she did.
And you, as the supervisor, have reviewed that and signed off on it, correct?
Yes, I have.
Included in this court report, it's several hundred pages. There are the case service plans for both the parents, the CTEC assessments for all. I'm sorry, did we have CTEC assessments for 6 children or 7?
It looks like, I think one of them was not done yet.
Okay.
I think Billy's was not done. No, Billy's is done. Hendricks, okay.
And then we have the court orders for.
Your Honor, I would ask if we're on YouTube that children's names have on it.
Thanks, sorry. And if it, I mean, there are 7. So, and if you wanna assume the oldest is number 1 and the youngest is number 7, that helps.
We'll get through it. So in addition to that, there's also the court orders from Judge Olsaver relating to the junior. And then there's Ms. Four's records from, I believe, Dawn Farm, is that correct?
That is correct.
A drug screen for Mr. Four, and then the proof of service, is that correct?
That is correct.
Are there any other documents that have been circulated since that you're aware of, since Ms. Pelham has filed this packet?
Maybe, I don't think so. I did send an email today to everyone that I had received from the person that has been working with Chris from Housing Help of Adrian. But that is the only document that I'm aware of that has been circulated.
Okay. I'm going to attempt to shift all of this to Mr. Four so that way we can hopefully address Ms. Four when her attorney returns. As relates to Mr. Four, he has his 5 children in his care, correct?
Correct.
And one of the opening comments in the court report is that the department is asking the court to consider removing those children from his care custody today. Is that correct?
That is correct.
What is the substantial risk of harm to these children's life, physical health, and mental well-being in his care?
There are several. So I'll start with the housing situation first. They are currently living in transitional housing that they were supposed to be out of in September. Chris has been given the date of 10/10 to leave the premises. My understanding is he possibly had secured an apartment with Gideon Ballou for $1,400, but he didn't have a job at that time yet. I think he may have possibly recently gotten a job, but there were a lot of concerns about whether or not he would actually be able to afford a $1,400 apartment. There's also multiple concerns about safety in the home. We've received several referrals this reporting period about just really a lot of chaos in the home. Number 1, on 9/6, I know that Chelsea had done safety planning with Mr. Four regarding Billy's medication. Then on 9/14, Billy was able still to access her medication and took several of her antidepressant medication and was subsequently hospitalized at Havenwick. Then again, Billy was able to access her medication last Monday on 9/30 and again went to Havenwick again, where she remains at this time. So we have extensive concerns about his ability to keep medication.
I guess once again, are we on YouTube?
Where? Sorry. So the other issue that we seem to be having too is safety planning around W.
The second child.
Yes,
second oldest.
number 2. And his potentially sexually acting out with the rest of the children in the home, as well as Mr. Four's girlfriend's child. There are concerns about Mr. Four hitting 3 of the boys. One of them has disclosed that he has been physically hitting them. All of the children have disclosed that their dad has told them not to share what's happening in their house because we're going to take them away. And it's causing a considerable amount of distress to the children.
As it relates to the alleged sexual offense by child number 2 amongst the siblings and or an out-of-home child, what efforts have been made to investigate that matter?
Well, we have made referrals to law enforcement and CACs have been scheduled, but Mr. Four has not cooperated with making sure the kids got there. The 2, okay, so CF and KS, no, not KS, CF and
CNH, the 2 younger.
Yes, the 2 younger boys were
4
taken to a CAC, but that was because Ms. Pelham went to pick them up because Mr. Four had refused to take them. So he has not been helpful in getting the kids to appointments for them to be interviewed.
Why is that a concern to the department?
Because we're trying to come up with some kind of a safety plan and assess what's happening in the home. And if we can't even get the kids to the CAC to do interviews to find out what's truly happening. We're kind of stuck in how we can safety plan, especially when it comes to children that are sexually acting out.
Were you made aware of any police reports involving this family that are not part of this court report?
I was made aware of several that were made. I believe that I copied and printed out two or three that were made since this, during this reporting period, yes.
Okay, and those police reports, what are the general allegations, do you recall?
So basically, we got one on 8/29. So these basically are CPS investigations that were called in, and subsequently Lens were then referred to law enforcement so they could investigate. We received a referral on 8/29 alleging the sex use of BF by WF. We received one on 9/11 regarding WF having a black eye. We received one on 9/30 that BF attempted, and then we had one on 10/1 that was screened out that WF tried to kiss BF, and that he also had been Chris's girlfriend's child. That's what was indicated in the report.
Are you familiar with any police reports regarding W or L, their behaviors towards Mr. Four?
I do not recall.
Okay, that's fine, thank you. And you said that the last one you mentioned with W kissing B, and I'm gonna use air quotes here, quoting Chris's girlfriend's child. You said that was screened out, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. During this review period, was there an ongoing CPS investigation?
Yes.
And what exactly was that investigation about?
The first one came in about use of BF by WF. And then that was subsequently denied because there was no disclosure. Then on 9/11, we did receive the referral that WF had a black eye. And that was the most current investigation. Well, actually, I think that there's also the one on 9/30 that's still pending, or that's still being investigated regarding attempt. WBF.
Based on the investigations, to the best of your knowledge, were any of the allegations substantiated? These new allegations that happened in this review period?
They are still pending.
Okay.
The only one that is not is the 8/29 one that alleged the use of BF by WF, and that one was denied.
Okay. And to date, B has not had a CAC interview, correct?
No.
Okay. And the request for removal is not necessarily due to whether those investigations were substantiated or not, but the facts as a whole, is that correct?
Correct. The amount of chaos that seems to be happening in the home. We have IHT services in the home and have been for quite some time, and very small things are, we have Chris calling IHT to settle things, or when there are issues that we feel at 6 months down the road, he should be able to handle. When we're talking about things like Bluetooth speakers and laundry, that those kinds of things turn into arguments at the home, and then Mr. Four is contacting IHT. So there's some concerns about how much is he really learning from these intensive services that we want him to utilize IHT if there's a concern, but how much of it is he maintaining or learning that he's demonstrating?
In the report, there's also concerns about the oldest child's education. I think there might have, I don't know where I read a recommendation perhaps to get her enrolled in online education.
Yes, correct.
And what happened with that?
So Ms. Pelham had provided information to Mr. Four regarding possible online or alternative programs for BF to attend school, because she indicated that she was being bullied at school and didn't feel comfortable going. That information was provided to Mr. Four, and then when Ms. Pelham went to go follow up in regards to whether or not that had been addressed, his response was that Tori, the IHT worker, was taking care of that, when it's not that worker's responsibility to take care of that. That was his responsibility to take care of.
As relates to housing, you noted that there's an exit date as of 10/10. Has the housing, transitional housing manager or case manager, I'm not sure the official title there, has that individual been part of family team meetings?
Yes.
And when was the original exit date supposed to be? Like, how long is that program supposed to last?
My understanding is only 45 days. I believe that he was supposed to be out very early in September, and they have continued to extend because they have felt bad about his situation, but they can no longer extend.
Okay, and that, I mean, the department knew about that, correct?
That is correct.
And what efforts were made to assist with housing?
Multiple. The most recent attempt that I am aware of is that Chris had contacted Ms. Pelham and advised that he had found a trailer, and that we told him that we would find the funds, but he needed to follow up with an SCR application, and he did not follow through with that.
Now, if he has approval for an apartment, can the department find funds to assist with like the down payment and or like the security payment and first month's rent requirement?
Yes.
What is a concern if the department does front those funds moving forward?
He doesn't have a job to support that. He can't maintain it if he isn't able to pay for his rent. We're not really putting him any further ahead.
And the report indicates that he has not been able to maintain employment because of the significant number of appointments for the children. So in that case, what has been done to support him in finding employment while also ensuring the children get to where they need to go?
Well, the kids are in school during the day. So I'm not sure. I mean, I know that the kids have been having some issues with having to come home from school because of behaviors or whatever that situation may be. But Mr. Ford hasn't followed through with getting them to some of the appointments that we're asking him to take them to. So the kids haven't been to doctor's appointments other than maybe to urgent care. I think only one of the kids has had a medical appointment or has had a physical since he's had the children in his care. I believe the kids all need dental work done. That's not being taken care of.
To the best of your knowledge, did Mr. Ford obtain employment recently?
He said he did, but I'm not sure that he actually started.
Okay, you just don't have any proof of it
I do
at this
not.
time? Okay. To the best of your recollection, just because I'm not able to recall this from the top of my head, has Mr. Ford completed a psychological evaluation?
I do not believe so. He's saying he did. So I'm going to be honest, I don't know. That's not something I remember.
What efforts have been put into, so it sounds like parenting abilities are a concern for the department. And what reasonable efforts have been made to assist in developing those parenting skills for Mr. Ford?
So he has had access to IHT services with Tori and Mike Mueller. He's been in therapy with Mike Mueller. Tori is always available whenever there's a crisis or emergency to address any situation. And we've had CTAC assessments as well that were just completed. So those are all things that would be incorporated into the treatment plan.
I just want to kind of circle back. There's a court report, I believe, from 7/24 that Dad's psychological was scheduled for 7/22. We did not get the results of this report. I know, so if the court issues a removal order, the children are placed in the Department for Care and Custody. And at that point, there's no really negotiations about who is going to take place on the children. It's up to the department. Is that fair?
That is correct.
But prior to that, are there efforts made to work with the parents to find potential relative placements?
Yes.
And in this matter, did the parents indicate who or whether they had any potential relative placements that they would like explored for placement of the children?
Yes.
And who did they come up with?
So there was Kenny Smith was offered. There is Ms. Four, which would be Chris's stepmom. But then I'm trying to remember if there was anyone else that we home studied from the family. We had many, many phone calls, but there was not anybody that was appropriate that they offered. The two that that they told us about, we have looked into.
As relates to Mr. Smith, was his home appropriate?
No.
And can you just briefly elaborate why?
There's no running water or sewer in the home and hasn't been for many, many years, is my understanding. So it's just not a situation that we can help correct.
Is Mr. Smith, Mr. Kenny Smith, is he
Yes.
appropriate?
Yes.
And that is a maternal grandfather or step-grandfather?
He's a stepdad for Brittany.
So, okay, maternal step-grandfather. And is that someone that the department may be able to place with if that individual is willing to like stay at a hotel or an Airbnb or
Yes.
something?
Correct.
And as relates to Chris's stepmom, has there been the background checks done on her?
Yes.
And has the department deemed her to be appropriate? No, she does not. Where does she live?
She lives in Ohio, close to Cleveland.
And where would, because we don't have ICPC completed at this time, where would the children stay if they're placed in the department and then is effectively placed with her?
Right, so what we were hoping we could do is have a Reg 7 ICPC ordered, and our intent is to have Miss 4 be lodged here in Adrian, either a hotel or an Airbnb until the Reg 7 is completed.
And just for everyone's knowledge, what is Reg 7?
Reg 7 is an expedited emergency homestay.
Okay. And has anyone expressed concerns about this caregiver's ability to care for the children?
No.
And prior to the best of your knowledge, do the children have a relationship with this individual?
Yes, they do.
And how were you able to confirm that?
She had a placement of the children for about 9 months until Chris and Brittany came and got them.
Okay. Ms. Chabad, before she exited, indicated that Ms. 4, may have housing, starting soon, and that she would request the children be with her. Would there be a substantial risk of harm if the court were to release the children to the mother's care and custody at this point in time?
Yes. Brittany's new in her recovery, which is great, but she has a long way to go. And there are also several pending criminal charges, and there are potentially more investigations to come that I cannot say that would be a safe place for the kids to be. And I do know for a fact that at least one of them has no desire to communicate with her at all.
To the best of your knowledge, have these trauma assessments been reviewed with the parents?
I'm not sure if Chelsea did, because when she went off, I'm not sure if she actually addressed them. They can be. If she has not addressed them, I'm absolutely more than willing to go over them with them, as well as with the therapist, make sure the therapist has them as well.
Is there anything else that you would like to highlight from the report or your knowledge of the case for the record?
I can't think of anything specifically other than that we are very, very concerned about the children in their current placements. And we just want to make sure that they can be in a safe place so they can recover and heal and move forward. And that the parents can get the help that they need to be in the kids' lives.
And generally speaking, how would you describe mom's level of compliance with and benefit from her case service plan?
She's doing everything that she's been asked to do. And she's sober. She did a drug screen last week that was negative. So I do know that she is maintaining sobriety, which is great. So she just completed treatment at Dawn Farms, moved into transitional housing. She is employed, I believe, to my understanding.
And as relates to Mr. 4?
What do you want to know?
His level of compliance with and benefit from his case service plan?
Not so much. I mean, he's partially compliant, but I don't think that he really is grasping the skills. He's not picking up on the skills that he needs to from all the services that he's getting. I'm worried about his ability to maintain control and have these kids be safe. They're not following safety plans. We have girlfriends, children over there. Nobody's watching boundaries. The kids are not being supervised appropriately. And we have a lot of concerns about inappropriate sexual behavior.
If the court were to order removal, would the goal for the children remain reunification?
Yes, of course.
If the children, this is a big if, but if they are eventually moved with their step-grandmother or the grandparents in the Cleveland area, what do you anticipate parenting time looking like?
We've already talked to the caregiver and she understands and knows that parenting time will be ordered at some point, and they're willing to do what they need to do in order to make sure that the parents have adequate parenting time.
And to the best of your knowledge, as relates to child W, the allegations against him, is there still a criminal investigation pending, or what's happening?
Yes, I believe that all of the people have not been interviewed. I know that Chris's girlfriend's daughter has not been brought in for her interview either. I know that, I think, if I remember correctly, an appointment was scheduled, but they never brought her, and then she's not communicating with the officers, so we haven't been able to interview the victim.
And what about B? Has she been interviewed?
I believe, no, none of the kids have been interviewed about these allegations, other than the two younger boys.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Your Honor, I have no further questions of Ms. Fullerton and would move to admit the court report with its attachments.
No objection.
No objection.
All right, Ms. Deputy Ames, would you swear in, please? Ms. Brittany Ford. Okay, Ms. Ford, have you received a copy of the court report and its?
Honestly, when I was in treatment, my therapist wasn't giving me paperwork.
Well, it was supposed to come to you by email.
No, that I did not receive it. The only thing I've received is from Tori.
So it looks like it was sent to the email address that we have for you on record on October 1st at a Gmail. Is there any possibility that you do have it and maybe you just didn't see it come through?
No, I have not gotten it. I've been looking because they texted me telling me that they were going to send me something, and I've looked every day and it's not there.
Right.
Would you like me to give her email address?
Sure. That's not a bad idea. So Ms. Fullerton, it looks like Jamie Dillon did execute a proof of service on 10/1. Do you know whether or not anything came back or?
Nothing came back.
Have you talked with Ms. Dillon to know that for sure?
She's here, actually.
Oh, okay. All right, so we can address that potentially that way. So I'll table the objection then. Yeah, this is a different email address, so it's just means a different one than what we have, what was provided initially for. So that could be part of the issue, I think. So we'll table that request for admission for the moment.
Understood, Your Honor.
Your Honor, my client has a position. I believe she's entitled to receive it 7 days prior to the hearing, not including the date of hearing or the date. I believe that's the case, or the day of the mailing, which would only be 6 days, not a full 7 days. Since this is the 7th and it was mailed on the 1st.
It was emailed. So she would have received it the same day.
Yeah, I don't think the court rules distinguish between email and mail. It says 7 days.
That's correct, but our court orders regularly instruct email so that the parent can actually have a chance to look at it. Because if it's simply mailed 7 days ahead of time, there's a significant chance they won't get it anytime.
I understand that's the position my client would like to hear.
Thank you. Okay, what's important here too to remember is that in order to get these things, we have to have the most updated email addresses, because at the end of the day, if the department is following the court order to email the court reports and the attachments out 7 days ahead of time, but you haven't provided them with an email address that works.
Chelsea had my email that did work. Chelsea had that email, and I've gotten emails from Chelsea. So they did have to email.
Well, I appreciate that information as well. I have not received the court report or the exhibits into evidence officially, so we'll again table that issue. I mean, there's a lot to get through today. So let's head into something next. Cross-examination, Mr. McFarland.
Yes. Yes, number one, you claim that the IHT are to be consulted regarding crisis or emergencies, correct?
Correct.
You have not had any direct contact with my client as a supervisor, correct?
Yes.
Okay, you talked to him?
Yes, I've been in family team meetings with him. I've talked with him.
And you testified that part of IHT was that my client feels he has a crisis, he's to call them, correct?
Yes.
No. If he feels these incidents are crises and he's calling them, what's the fault there? If that's what you indicate they're there to do, if he feels there's a crisis.
Some of these issues are normal childhood issues that occur that he should, after 6 months of working with IHT, know how to at least remotely handle.
One of those calls regarding a possible incident of domestic violence?
Did he call the police?
That's not my question to you. My question to you wasn't one of his calls to IHT a question of domestic violence, correct?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know. Chelsea was the direct worker. I'm not sure what specific issues that they were called out on. I can only testify to you about what I know, and I don't have access to that information. I can't answer that question. I don't know.
Fair enough. Not asking to speculate. So my client indicates that both he and mother, who's sitting here, have told Ms. Pelham that the proposed placement has a minor child, my client's brother, who assaulted W, the oldest child. Are you aware that they have both informed Ms. Pelham of this?
I'm aware that there was an incident between Wyatt and their child.
I'm not using names, remember?
Sorry. And so I am aware that there was an incident between those two children, which is why we're asking that WF not be placed there.
Well, how do we
Mr.
know?
Moore
How do we
actually
know?
brought up on, when we had a family team meeting on Tuesday, he actually brought this placement up during the family team meeting.
So you believe that that allegation is true, that the minor child who lives with the proposed placement assaulted another?
My understanding is that WF attacked that child and was subsequently hospitalized for it.
Well,
And that placement is here and can probably testify to that.
well, we're still waiting for Ohio to investigate and determine for this, for your agency, correct, that issue?
They have to get the IPCPC.
Correct.
But we have done our own initial investigation as well. When we have to do the 5770 before we can place a child in your care.
Is there any written report in this 200 and some pages indicating that that has been investigated and cleared?
I have received paperwork today from that person about hospitalization information from WF when they were in that, when he was in that person's care.
So that's not been shared with anybody?
No,
right?
I just got it literally 5 minutes before court.
And my understanding is that you indicated you're going to be putting the potential placement up into a hotel or an Airbnb, correct?
Yes,
How long, in your experience, and you've been with the agency for many years, correct,
yes.
does it take to get an investigation completed in the state of Ohio?
Well, an expedited would have to be done in 45 days.
Are there sufficient funds for the agency to put them up for 45 days here in Michigan? Well, if there's those funds available, does the agency have funds if a potential placement does not have, let's say, water or toiletries, to spend that funds on a potential placement where there could be maybe more or a faster occupancy?
The agency is going to assist that placement as well for WF to be there. That particular provider or person that we were just talking about is the one that we said that because of their water situation, we would also consider putting in a hotel until they can make their situation acceptable.
I do not understand that. Thank you for that clarification. I'm not disagreeing that if W was going to be interviewed by police, my client has a right to at least secure an attorney for his Fifth Amendment rights, correct?
Sure.
Have you questioned father as far as why the other children in his care and custody were not interviewed by the police? Did you ask him?
I believe Chelsea had conversations with him about
My
that.
question was, did you ask?
I did not. I have not.
Fair enough. My client has a job lined up next week. You wouldn't know that, correct?
Correct. I know he said something about Sodexo or something possibly, but that's the last I knew.
If he has a job and if he has a stable living environment for these children, would you still be pursuing the remedy, which is removal that you're requesting today?
Yes,
Yeah. Is that based upon what?
based on his failure to follow safety plans. We really, BF is in the hospital for the second time in a 2-week period of time because of access to medications that she overdosed on. We have children reporting being hit by their dad. We have kids potentially, they're sexual acting out, and there's a lot of concern about supervision.
Did I understand you correctly that was it the potential assaulting by dad has not been substantiated? Is that what I hear?
There's a potential that's being investigated currently about WF having a black eye.
Which cases did you indicate were not substantiated? There was
There was
one
one on 829 that alleged sexual abuse between BF and WF that was denied.
Okay, and 3 others are pending, but not substantiated, correct?
I don't know I'm not saying they're not substantiated because I don't know what the outcomes of those are. They're still being investigated. So they could potentially be substantiated.
Well, potentially means down the road, but as of this point, it's still
As
an
of right
active
now, there's still an
investigation.
active investigation.
Which might not be substantiated, correct?
I believe that the one with the black eye will be substantiated.
Nothing further.
Any questions? From our GAO?
I think you've overall answered the vast majority of the questions that I would have asked, and I just want to make it clear. The department has done everything in its power to avoid being in this removal situation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And prior to Ms. Pelham taking her unexpected medical leave, did you say that she went above and beyond what she was required to do in this case?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, Ms. Brittany Ford, did you have any questions for Ms. Fullerton? I'm sorry, is that a no?
No.
Okay. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. We return your seat. At this time, we're going to take a brief recess so we can address the adjournment of the 3:30, as well as I think some more scheduling options to continue for in light of the commitments to children and some of the other things that come up. So,
Your Honor, question. This my client has a question that we mentioned the time frame. My client needs to leave by 4 if these children are picked up by him.
yes, I just addressed that actually.
I'm sorry, he was talking to me. I didn't hear.
That's okay. That's part of the reason we're taking the recess, because I'm going to look at the calendar to see if there's more time in the next couple of days that we can try to come back. And also I need to adjourn the 3:30 so that we can make adequate time, especially considering some of the particulars of the 3:30 case. On the record one more time.
Sure. Nicole Underwood, legal guardian ad litem for the minor children.
Ms. Sasha Thomas, counsel for the department.
Mimi Fullerton from the department.
Michael McFarland representing father. Please introduce yourself again, Mr. Ford.
Christopher Ford, father.
Ready for mother.
Thank you. I understood actually that potentially Ms. Ford's attorney would be available to us again. If anybody has her information to let her know that we could still use her, that would be great.
I will.
I just texted her, Your Honor.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. Very good. All right. Ms. Thomas, we could just conclude, I think, with your department witness.
Yes, Your Honor, I would ask Ms. Tori Sloan to be sworn in.
Ms. Who?
Tori Sloan.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ms. Sloan.
Hi.
Thank you for being with us today. You, from the record or from the documents that the court has, you are the intensive home-based therapist for this family, correct?
Correct.
Can you briefly state what the IHT program, the framework of it?
So IHG is a it's based in multi-systemic therapy treatment, and it basically looks at a family or a juvenile delinquent with as a whole in their community. It addresses a wide range of needs, including the child's self or father self, community, neighborhood, things like that, schools, employment.
It's 60 contacts in 4 months, so that's about 3 to 4 contacts a week. I see the family. And then I'm on call 24/7 for crisis.
All right, before we go any further, I want to give Ms. Dumont a chance to introduce herself.
Hi, Your Honor. I just was able to log back in.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Yep.
Your Honor, I would move that any witnesses be sequestered, there are going to be further witnesses.
Do you have any further witnesses after this witness, Ms. Thomas?
Maybe the parents, but I don't, and if the court needed to hear from Ms. Dillon on service or whatever, but.
Well, that's fine. She's an agency worker. She's any non-agency workers. If there are any, I don't know.
Do you have any witnesses other than the parties?
My client tends to testify and I will call him if the agency doesn't.
Anyone else?
No.
Okay. Ms. Dumont, do you have any other witnesses anticipated today?
Your Honor, I believe Ms. Ford wanted to testify.
Very good, thank you. Ms. Underwood?
I have no additional witnesses.
Okay, I don't think we need to address the motion, Mr. McConnell.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Go ahead, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you. Okay, so Ms. Sloan, you stated, the 60 contacts in 4 months equates to 3 to 4 contacts per week.
Yeah.
And those contacts can be within any of those systems, correct?
Correct. So like a contact could count like an individual session, but if I called like at that point the previous worker, that would be a contact as well. So my contacts with this family are really high just because there's a high need and there's a lot of kiddos to talk about.
Yes, so have you exceeded more than 60 contacts in 4 months?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll probably, so it was ordered for 4 more months. And if that were to go, I probably exceeded that as well.
In working with the family, you heard Ms. Florison's testimony, correct?
Mm-hmm.
For the record, can you just?
Yes, yeah, sorry.
Okay, thank you. And in her testimony, there was information about Mr. Four and the concerns of the children in his home.
Yeah.
I think it's probably fair to say that you are the one who has the most insight as what's happening in the home. Is that accurate?
I think so. I think there's probably things nobody knows inside the home and within the children and Chris and everybody involved. I think that this is a very complex case. But yeah, I'm in the home a lot. I work really well with Chris. I work well with the children. So I see them pretty regularly.
Do you share any of the concerns that Ms. Fullerton testified to or that were put in the court report?
Okay, so one of the main concerns that I have right now currently is the housing. I do think that that is a problem. I think that's a serious, serious problem we have to address. I think that in terms of the allegations that have been made, I think that the children deserve some space so that they can go to the CACs and make those reports and let an investigation happen. I think that's appropriate. And I do think that Chris and I have talked about this pretty regularly for the last couple of weeks with his therapist, Mike Mueller, who's not here, but and so we've been prepping for this for a minute. So in terms of the removal, we've kind of had it on the radar and have planned accordingly. But yes, the housing and the financial stability, whether that's applying for Section 8 or whatever, I think that's one of my big concerns.
Do you have concerns about Mr. Ford's ability to manage the children's behaviors in a safe manner?
I think that with the housing, stress of housing and lack of resources, it's hard to parent 5 high-need children, period. Those are his responsibility. He had those children, but it's incredibly hard when they have reactive behaviors to trauma and things like that. And so it's just been difficult.
The reactive behaviors to trauma.
Mm-hmm.
That. Were you able to review the trauma assessments?
I was.
And generally speaking, do you work with the 4 children?
Yes.
And based on your observations and work with them, do you generally agree with what the trauma assessments found?
Yeah, I do. I think that the children probably disclose less than what has been happened, like what's happened to them. I do
I'm
think.
objecting speculation, Your Honor, probably something, speculation.
Sorry,
not professional
sorry.
opinion.
Well, hang on. Would you like to respond?
Your Honor, the rules of evidence don't really apply in these hearings. I think that Ms. Sloan is speaking from a place where she perhaps does have more information, which this question is starting to lay the foundation for follow-up questions on that point. I think that given her contacts with the family, it's well within a reasonable opinion of hers. And I think the court can also balance it with the weight that it needs to be given.
Any position, Ms. Dumont?
No, Your Honor, I defer to the court.
Ms. Underwood?
I would concur with Ms. Thomas that although Ms. Sloan hadn't gotten her picture out yet, she's utilizing both the experience with the family, but also what she's read in the report to make her determination, her opinion.
Yes, I mean, I would agree with that, Mr. McFarland. She has a lot of experience with this family, and I think your objection goes more to weight than admissibility. So I'm going to overrule it. Go ahead.
I think I remember the question. Yeah. I think that when I say I think that they probably didn't disclose as much, I think that they downplay their trauma to people they meet one time. Like for me, I know a lot about the family, and I probably know a little bit more because I see them regularly every day. So they're more comfortable talking to me about their trauma. And I think that there were things that didn't come out, especially with BF's assessment. And so things like that, that's what I mean when I say that. But yes, I am familiar with it. I do agree with it. I think the children are incredibly traumatized, period, on a multitude of levels, but, and they have high needs, so.
As it relates to the children's trauma, it makes sense that you probably have more time to build rapport with them, obviously, with your testimony. And
I didn't hear an answer.
Yes.
And since you've started to work with them, have they continued to make additional disclosures about traumatic experiences that they've had?
Yes.
In your experience with them, do those disclosures happen sporadically, or is there typically a trigger, or?
It depends. I mean, kids say the darndest things, you know, they say random things at times, and then other times things do trigger them and they have a memory, or they see something or hear something or see a picture, and then something pops up. But it's, for the most part, somewhat random, but it will, you know, they can be triggered.
As it relates to parenting time with Miss 4, do you have any recommendations on that point for the children?
Yeah, so I think with the previous worker, it was kind of pushed that the visitation start, and I could understand where she was coming from with that, you know, at the light of removal and stuff like that. But we had our first visit. It went overall pretty well. You know, she was appropriate in the visitation. She was okay. And, you know, I sent her a visitation summary. I sent her some resources to educate herself on trauma and things like that. But it was the following day that the two youngest boys were incredibly reactive, and had reported like some other things that they've disclosed some other allegations that I think need to be looked at. So right now, I just say like suspend for right now until we can get that sorted.
Did B and W have parenting time?
They do not.
Okay, and they've continued to express they do not want parenting time with mom?
B definitely doesn't want parenting time, period. She doesn't want anything at all. W, I think, had reported that he wanted to see how the visits were going with the two younger boys before making a decision, but as of now, no, he does not want to see her.
What about L?
She does want to see her mother.
Did she have any negative reactions or any responses to the last parenting time?
So not the last parenting time, but so when visitation was put up in the
Your
air.
Honor, I'm objecting. This is beyond the scope. The question was last parenting time. She said no to last parenting time. Now please ma'am.
Sorry, she
Now
just
she's-
hasn't had it, sorry.
Now she's adding beyond what the question was, so. I asked that she be told to answer the question and not extend her answers to something not asked.
No, really objection. She's testifying on direct examinations, not cross-examination. You're welcome to cross-examine her when you need to.
When visitation was up in the air and she was told by the previous worker she was gonna visit her mom, that was the weekend that Chris called in crisis 3 days in a row.
Were those crises involving Elle?
2 of them were.
And so did Elle have a visit with mom?
Not yet.
Some of the concern that Ms. Fullerton had in her testimony, which I think is mimicked in the court report as well, is perhaps an over-reliance on IHT or the caseworker.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have that concern as it relates to Mr. Ford?
I think that when you have little resources, and he's been given quite a few, and he has access to me and Mike Moeller and everybody, you do use them. I don't necessarily think he should be punished for using those crises that weekend in specific. They were real crises. They were something like, I would be like, oh my gosh, I gotta call somebody for. And it's hard to manage, but I think right now, you know, that my contacts are incredibly high, period. So on paper, yeah, but it's a complicated case and a very complicated family.
In your opinion, do you believe that some separation, I think that's maybe how you framed it to the children maybe, for if there's separation from dad, so there can be some stabilization, would that benefit the children in the long run?
I do think so, because I think that Miss Ford did a really good job when she was able to get the privilege to focus on herself and heal. She's sober 5 months. She's done everything that was asked of her. You know, she's in a house, she's stable. And I think that Chris deserves that opportunity as well, where he can get his life together so that one day his children that love him very much can come home.
Is there anything that you think the court report doesn't hit on, or anything from your experience with family that you want the court to know, or that the court would benefit from knowing?
I just think overall the case is very complex. I would say this is probably one of the hardest cases I've ever had. The children are incredibly resilient. They're smart. They're hyper aware of professionals and their parents' emotions. You know, if I stroll into the house in a mood, they pick up on that really quickly. So you kind of have to set yourself back. And same with the parents, you know, they'll pick up really quickly. That's how they've learned to survive. You know, they're wonderful children. I think that they deserve a life with their parents healthy and sober and safe. But I think it's going to be a long road to get there. And that is just the reality. So
If the court orders removal of the children from Mr. Ford, can IHT continue?
no.
What would your involvement with the family then look like?
IHT would end. If they remain in the community, I hope to still see them. Get their insurance. I don't know what I'm not going to be paid for the crisis time, but I've just said whatever at this point. But if they remain in the community, then I would see, I know BF, I would see twice a week, once for individual and once in group therapy. And those are incredibly important. Their group therapy is incredibly important to her. So that, and then crisis, on call for that foster family because she does have very high needs. If WF stays in the community, Therese Langham would take him as an individual client to work out some of those sexual behaviors. She's, you know, trained to do that. That's something she is an expert in. So that would be really good. Chris would still continue to see Mike Moeller and have access to me as needed. The two younger boys, if therapeutic visits started up again with mom, I would see mom in therapeutic visits with them eventually. And then we, after the therapeutic visit, kind of have a cool down period where we do some just like lighthearted play stuff, just to cool them down. And then LF would be seeing Mike Moeller and probably another Parkside therapist, Leah Bachman. She was just hired, so she's worked with them before, but we could accommodate that. I think IHG is beneficial to them, but we're just gonna keep an intensive schedule even if it ends.
Thank you for that. I have no further questions of this witness, Your Honor.
Okay, any questions, Ms. Dumont?
Yes, Your Honor. You had testified that Ms. Four has acted appropriately before her parenting time and during her parenting time. Is that correct?
Yeah, for the therapeutic visits.
Okay. And how many times a week is she able to see the two youngest children?
So in this reporting period, she's only seen them once. We started last week. So just one time she sees them for 1 hour.
Okay. And she was drug screened before that as well, correct?
Correct.
And there's no issues with any of that?
No, she was sober and, you know, it was emotional for sure, but she was sober.
Okay.
And
so she's had one parenting time with each of the youngest children, and you're recommending now to suspend that completely?
not forever. I think just until if they move to remove, just until they get stabilized in a foster placement, and then they can be reevaluated at that time. But, you know, Christian had a lot of behaviors in school the next day. And like I said, CF, the youngest child, he had a lot of behaviors in school. He ran out of the school building into traffic. He was just throwing desks. Like, he had a hard time with it, and he had a hard time in the session. I think HF, the second oldest boy, he did good. He did well, but it was CF that had some problems, and it was even emotional when mom went to go. So just until they are stabilized where they're at in the placements that they will be in, I think that would be appropriate.
But you testified as well that these children have high needs and you know, behavioral issues. So I guess I'm not sure how you can necessarily equate his outburst a day later after his parenting time with his mother to her in any way.
There are high needs in terms of, like, you have to be very trauma informed when you work with them or talk with them. And Christian does have behavior problems in schools, but he's never ran out of the building. And just from the way that the visit went, he was very emotional, and it took him a long time to regulate him after the visit. And honestly, I didn't even want to send him back to school that day. So the day before, after the visit, I didn't even want to send him back to the school that day. But there was just no childcare in place. So it just was hard.
But at this point, you're just speculating and with regards to the outburst.
An informed opinion.
Okay. And again, Ms. Four hasn't done anything that's concerning on her end to have any parenting time suspended. Is that correct?
Well, the children also reported after the therapeutic visit some concerns about what they saw with mom. And that was another reason for the visitation to be suspended until those can be properly investigated. HF had made the comment that his balloon, like his good thing for the day, was he got to see his mother, and the brick was he remembered that she sold her oldest daughter to a married man. So that's what they said. That's what he said. That's what he reported. So I think that, coupled with the next day with their behaviors in school, it just until they're stabilized, it's gonna be better just to hold off. But I'm not saying that's the truth or not. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that that's what they reported. And similarly with what they report about dad, I think that needs to be investigated as well. So.
Okay, and then who are you reporting that information to investigate?
Child Protective Services and DHS.
Okay.
And maybe law enforcement if it warrants it.
Okay. But then you are still agreeable that therapeutic parenting time at some point should continue?
Yes, I do. I think that children love their mother. I think the two youngest boys for sure love their mom. And they love their dad as well. But I think we're gonna, just until everything's sorted out and these kids are stabilized, it just makes sense to hold off.
Okay. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Mr. McFarland,
Nothing, Your Honor.
Ms. Underwood,
Ms. Sloan, what would parenting time look like for dad with the children if they were removed from his care?
Similar to the situation with Miss Four, it, for a period of time, be suspended, let dad get on his feet, get some stuff going, let them be able to disclose if there's anything they want to disclose or feel the need to disclose. And then eventually therapeutic visitation with dad and the family as a whole would be really, really good, because you're not going to be able to heal from that trauma away forever. You know, you kind of have to address the elephant in the room at some point. So I think that therapeutic visitation, whether that's through Parkside or somebody else, be very appropriate.
I have no further questions, thank you.
any redirect, Ms. Thomas?
Ms. Sloan, I know that I think you're trying to protect the children and what they've shared with you.
Mm-hmm.
But I also wonder if it would be appropriate to share with the court what the children have said, so the court understands the gravity of what these children have endured.
Okay, so, okay, is that okay if I do that?
Would it be appropriate if we took it off live stream to do this?
Please, please.
Any objections?
Nope,
No.
we concur.